Hey folks, okay, so here's another one of my workouts, Veterano Plus. Today's bridge day, so this is my warm-up. It doesn't really look like much. People ask me, what do you do for your warm-up? Well, that's about it right here. Just turning muscle on, loosening up, shaking things out, any cobwebs I got, and then I jump right into it. We got the preliminary exercises. We're starting off today with the leg raises. These were the move I did last night, yesterday, so just keeping this one a little on the light side. Working on trying to keep the torso upright. A lot of times if I find that my chest is kind of pulling up towards the ceiling, that there's less activation in the abs. So getting a little lower, a little more upright, straighter spine really brings more tension into the abdominals because it's harder to lift up the hips. Handstands are next. And these have always been a bit of a weakness for me. I have trouble with any overhead pressing sort of motions, trying to keep my elbows in. Of course, as you can see, it's not what I'm really accomplishing there, but still, it's the trying. As I'm always saying, training is trying. So as long as you're trying and attempting to do something, you're going to get with it. Just finding a point where I get a little high tension and just kind of shifting in that area. For the pull-up move today, we've got recline row, single arm pulling on the suspension straps, and really focusing on keeping things pulled into the center line. When you do unilateral exercises like this, everything's got to come as close to the center line as possible. And that's not just your hands, but your elbows, and even pulling your shoulder blade in towards the center line goes a long way in helping you maintain balance and avoid a lot of that torque. A lot of people talk about a huge amount of torque with unilateral, especially horizontal moves like rows and push-ups, and you want to minimize that as much as possible. You don't want to necessarily need a wide stance in either of those moves. So getting a big full range of motion, keeping tension on the entire back, as well as the arm for the full range of motion, keeping the biceps on, not letting anything relax at the bottom. Squats. Squats are the one of my favorite movements, especially now that the pistols are starting to dial in a little bit more. Warm up with some closed squats. I always warm up with those a little bit just because the single leg squats require more inward rotation. I've always had trouble with that. I like to externally rotate, so I start with the closed squats to build in a little more internal. It's kind of like getting my brain into gear for the exercise to come. Feeling pretty good with these days. Left leg is certainly a hell of a lot stronger than my right leg. Keeping my arms, hands together is a progression I've made in the past few days, or about a week or so, and trying to get rid of any wobble. More activation in the outside of the hip. The glutes and muscles like the gluteus minimus and medius, very helpful. You can see I've got a little bit more wobble here on the right side, which means it's a little bit weaker. I've always had trouble on my right leg ever since I was a kid. Actually, when I was born, my right leg had some serious joint issues that took quite a while for me to overcome. And to a degree, I'm still overcoming them a little bit. So yeah, single leg squats, again, a modest level of fatigue, roughly around 60-70%. Push-ups are next. And just busting out a few of these closed push-ups. Once again, center line, center line, center line, center line, focusing on pulling the hands in, pulling the elbows in, pulling the shoulders in, pulling everything inwards. What you want to do, especially when you're doing archer push-ups like this or any move where you got your hand underneath you, is try and pull as much force into the inside of the hand. You could kind of see where my pointer finger knuckle is lifting a little bit. I call that tenting. Tenting with your hand. You want to get rid of that if possible. That means that force in your muscles is going outwards and upwards rather than down and inwards. So I'm basically trying to corkscrew my arm, get my elbow pointing as much towards my feet as possible. You can see I'm using about a shoulder width stance there, and I'm working on trying to keep that narrower and narrower as well. Big full range of motion, keeping the biceps engaged as well is key. All right, onto the bridges. The main move of the day. Warming up with table bridges, just a good way to turn on the back. I find this is a good exercise to do on a daily basis anyway, because of course with our sitting lifestyle, we have poor activation in our back and our posterior chain, glutes and hamstrings. So this is a wonderful exercise to do every single day, or at least some variation thereof. It's a regression of step 2 in convict conditioning. Speaking of convict conditioning, I think I'm on like step 4. The bridge progressions, head bridges. This is one of the reasons why I've always struggled with bridges. Bridges have always been my weakest move out of things. A large reason is because I have not made them a huge priority for the first few years of my calisthenics training, which was a huge mistake, because not only do bridges make your back better and your spine better, they make everything better, because the activation that you have with bridges and the flexibility and the shoulder control carries over to almost every other exercise you have. So bridges, definitely a huge reason why they are one of the big six and not some light exercise that you do just as part of warm-up. So you can see my range of motion is not that great, but it is better than it was last week. It is getting better every single time I do bridges. I'm noticing a difference. And as I always say, you don't get results by doing an exercise right. You get results by doing an exercise better. And as long as you keep getting better, you're going to keep getting results. Finish off for the hamstrings, crab walks down the lane. Again, the thing with crab walks is you don't want to push off with your arms, but pull with your hamstring. Think of this as an alternating unilateral hamstring curl, down and back. Basically, my hamstrings, it takes a few minutes of walking around the gym to get my hamstrings to stop cramping up on me after each one. And then shotgun muscle is what we finish off with. Grip work today. So just simple single arm hanging exercises off the TRX rack here. This is great for the grip. It's also great for the shoulder and back. Make sure that you don't have any weak links in your pulling chain. It's also a fantastic bicep exercise. This sucker really improves your bicep activation and will make your arms bigger, bar none. So single arm hangs. And then just as a little finisher, I got towel hangs. Towel hangs here out in Denver is kind of sketchy because if it's really dry, it's very hard to hold on to towels, so they're a good finisher here. So there you go, folks. There's one of my latest workouts. Questions down below. Don't forget, be fit and live free.